It's bad. Anime.
Yeah.
You did it. You bullied us.
You did it. You really did it. I didn't want to. I didn't want it. Neither of us wanted it. But now you're gonna get it. Because
wow, you look even more defeated than I do, and we're talking over each other already. This is gonna be a fun one.
Well, everybody, I might as well just introduce the episode. Of course, you're listening to Bad Anime, and we're talking about Redo of the Healer again. So this is redo of the redo of Healer, technically, and we're going to be talking about the entirety of Redo of Healer Season 1, because last time we tried to watch Redo of Healer, we got through maybe 3 to 4 episodes each, and then decided we couldn't do it.
I can give you my... thankfully, I watched it on hidive, so I was able to track where I stopped. I stopped within like the first couple minutes of episode 5, and I'm like, nope, I'm out. And if you want to hear our extended thoughts about at least the first 4 episodes of Redo of the Healer, you can watch our first episode on it. We hated it. Just simply put, we despised it for several reasons. I mean, because of the content, because of the animation, because of the music. We just hated this show, and we stopped. But then, something... Is miraculous the word I want to use here, Bouncy? Because something happened where we got wave after wave of feedback.
Yes, we really did. I think a lot of people... So upon releasing Redo of Healer, I think we got a few different things, right? Number one, it's probably one of our best performing podcasts of all time, up there with a few others. But, you know, it's very, very strong performance around the board, especially on all the podcast platforms. And in addition to that, there have been a few other things. We received a few emails from people watching the show. Shout out to you if you sent us an email about Redo of Healer, about how we should watch it again and kind of really focus on it the second time around. I posted a Instagram reel on it on our Instagram page at badanimepod. And this video, for some goddamn reason, keeps exploding again every week. It just like somebody new finds it and they re-explode it, and it keeps exploding. And I think it's at maybe almost like 100K views at this point, and some wild shit, which is a lot for us, for real. And everybody commenting on it is either like, oh bro, I couldn't stand that shit, oh my god, that was horrible, or the comment that I've been seeing much more of is, y'all are weak, this show's amazing. Yep. I'm like, excuse me? So all of those factors all together, including all those emails we've gotten, now bring us back to here. Back to the redo of Healer, where we're going to eat our words, we're going to go back, and we're going to talk about the full first season, regardless of if we liked it or not, and give you our full thoughts now that we have the full picture in mind and everything that has happened in this show. Oh.
Wow. You know, before we started recording, Bouncy, you had so much life and energy in you. We were having a good time, and now you just look so upset. I'm still riding that wave from the fun we were having before recording this episode. I'm like, oh god, this has already sucked the life out of my friend. Oh no.
It really has. And I think we were talking about before, we were like, oh, we got a lot of stuff to do today. What do you want to do first? And for some reason, I suggested we do Redo of Healer first. And immediately when I started recording, I regretted my decision. But here we are.
We're sticking to our guns, and we're talking about Redo of Healer. So, Bouncy, do you remember where you left off on Redo the last time? Was it when you rewatched? Where did you pick the series back up from?
So I picked back up Redo of Healer this time on, I think, episode 5 or 6. I assume it would be episode 5 because I don't think I got to 6.
Okay.
And I think what was happening at the time is Kearu, the hero of recovery. I use the term hero very loosely throughout the show. But the hero of recovery, he has now recruited Setsuna, the wolf girl. He's recruited Freya, the previous Flare princess of the Gyral Kingdom. He's also recruited... the first episode I came back to, he recruited Kureha, I believe, who is the silver-haired swordswoman that he fought randomly in a city. And that's, I think, where I came back to it, and that's where I went from to the end of the show. Where did you come back to it, Rob?
I came actually at the same point. That was episode 5, and my first note was, another girl, ellipses, great. That was my first note I took. I'm just like, oh, good God, there's another fucking girl here. Oh, no. Oh.
So I want to let you know, and I want to let everybody know that I the first time around watching Redo of Healer, I took extensive notes for the first maybe 3 to 4 episodes and knew everything that happened, and I could recite it to you from my notepad. This time, I didn't do any of that. I just like kept it bare and raw, just like our boy Kaoru. I just kept it going throughout. And man, let me tell you, I thought it was going to get better. And to be honest, in some ways it did. And I can expand on those later. But in a lot of ways, it got either worse or maintained its same level of revenge porn throughout. I think that's kind of become like the main crux of the show in a way. Like as I made my way through it, it seems like they really are focused on 2 things in this show. And that's number one, how can Kaoru-sama continue to recruit hot babes to then brainwash and bone? And then how many threesomes and foursomes can he have in one episode? And also the other crux of it is, how can he enact his revenge? And those 2 things seem to be carrying the show through the very end of it. And with every episode, I kind of had to just take that into consideration and understand, kind of like when I was watching Darling in the Franxx, like how in Darling in the Franxx, they started doing doggy style to get in the robots. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I'll never get used to it. I had to kind of get used to the threesomes and the foursomes throughout the show. That would just happen in between every scene.
Yeah.
In order to try to see where people had enjoyed this show outside of just, the boobs and sex for 12 episodes straight, if you know what I mean.
Yes, and not only the fact it was just a bunch of threesome and foursomes, the fact that these were 2, well, in the case of Freya, she was just straight up brainwashed and, wildly punished by, what's the name, Kaoru?
Oh, it's like Kaoru-sama. Man.
Well, because then he changes his name to Karaga or whatever the fuck.
Oh, that's right, Kaoru. Well, just call him Kaoru for simplicity of this.
Yeah,
because I didn't understand any of that shit. I didn't get any of that stuff of his transformation because he looks the fucking same, but just bigger.
Exactly. He just maybe bulked up a little bit. So what is... And the thing is, every sex scene here was just incredibly sad. Because, like I said, Freya was just straight up brainwashed, and then poor Setsuna was just a manipulated child. Let's not glance over that fact.
Yep.
She was a child of this wolf village that Kaoru just completely, essentially brainwashed into being like, his. The term sex slave is harsh, but that's what she is essentially.
I agree,
and it's.
I think that there is also this notion of everybody being his property, which is also a weird thing. And like I feel like for maybe a lot of people watching, it could be like a oh, that's like pretty hot and stuff. But I don't know. For me, it was just like, all right, that's a little weird. And there are times that Kaoru's like walking around, and I remember this distinctly in like episode 11 or 10, where he's thinking to himself like, oh, have I grown too attached to my tools, to my property? Do I care what happens to them? And then he thinks about the bullet. Who is one of the people that
that was the end of the show.
Yes. That was one of the people who like raped him in his past life considerably, and then he was like, no, never mind, I don't care about them, they're just tools and that I'm using for my revenge. So there was, after a long time, maybe a bit of a hint of internal conflict on him, whether he views his now lady companions as objects or if he actually values them emotionally, which it seems like he doesn't, but there was at least kind of a hint that he may have some kind of feeling or remorse for things that he's been doing in order to enact his own revenge. There are little bits like that I was like, okay.
Well, let's not forget, it's not even just his revenge, because he's driven in the middle of the show by this fetishistic desire for revenge. The whole thing with Setsuna in episode 4 was he wanted to take part in her revenge. And he gets this weird, twisted smile whenever he has the opportunity to help someone enact revenge in some way. It's fetishistic. This entire show is fucking fetishistic. And,
yes.
They tried to make Kaoru sympathetic. They really tried to, especially with a couple of characters. Because episode 6 for me is when the show actually started to get a little interesting. Because in episode 2, when he carried out the heinous assault on Flair, he did so by knocking out one of the guards and like doing like the whole like the face shifty thing where he kind of stole his face.
Yes,
there was a very cool thing where the guard maintained Kaoru's face. Like that's just a side effect from like the magic.
That's right.
The guard was so disgusted by seeing his face every day, because it was Kaoru's, he burned half of it in a fit of rage, and now he wears a giant eye patch. And now that guard who was dishonored by Kaoru was on this path of like his own revenge. So he went to Kaoru's home village and slaughtered people, and he, much like Kaoru, raped someone, and it happened to be Anna. Her name was Anna, or Anna, as it was pronounced in the show, and it was the only woman that Kaoru like actually cared for, or at least thought he cared for. It was the only woman who showed him kindness, and So there was it was a moment where they really tried to build up Kaoru as sympathetic, and maybe I think they tried to make him a victim in that context. I can tell they were trying to pull at my heartstrings, go like, this guy is a victim just as much as everyone else in his life.
Sure.
So I can see why people think that. I can see why people might be sympathetic to this character. I'm totally not, for one reason, and one reason only.
What is that reason?
Kaoru is a complete narcissist.
Completely.
Complete.
Oh my God.
And total narcissist. He views people as tools. He doesn't actually really love people. Everything going on is about his ego. And even with his revenge, it's less so about what they did to him, but it's more about what they did to his ego and his belief in himself. So this whole thing is basically just a narcissistic revenge story, and I feel bad for any empathetic people people who are natural empaths watching this show, because people who are naturally empathetic are unfortunately very susceptible to narcissistic behavior and tendencies. So if you're an empath, honestly, take this as a life lesson. Be careful when you're around narcissistic people, because if you fall victim to people's bullshit like this, it may not work out well for you. It's a pretty big stance I'm taking right now, trying to give people self-help advice in the middle of talking about redo the fucking healer, but it's appropriate. So
it is. I agree.
From my empaths out there, be warned, because there are bullshit people in the world, not kind of like this, not as much as a monster as Kaoru, but be careful. And Kaoru, once I realized how much of a narcissist he was and how he really doesn't care for anyone in his life, he's only out for himself and his revenge, to avenge his damaged ego. No, I didn't find him sympathetic at all, and I found all the actions they were just continuously heinous. When we got to in the beginning, they actually there's only one or two things in the show that were cool to me. And I'm bringing them up in kind of this order for one reason, because one of the people he wanted kind of to see, or in this version, because the whole premise of the show, for those who forgot what it was, or just so we can refresh ourselves, Kaoru went through this really troubled life, was brutally raped and assaulted by pretty much everyone he knew, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But then he had the ability to go back in time and redo everything, hence redo of healer. So in this life, he wants to encounter who will be the next demon lord. Because in this world, we have humans, demi-humans, and demonic beings. All three of them exist in this world. He had an encounter with the demon lord in episode 1 at the end of his previous life. So he wants to see this woman again.
Right.
So what he does, he travels to the city. I think it was called Brianka. And in this city was the only cool part of the show for me, where we got to see this city where humans, demi-humans, and demonic beings all coexisted peacefully. I was very happy to come into this world. And one of my notes I took was, wow, The two drunks at the back of the table in the tavern are my favorite characters in the show. The orc and the human.
Me too.
Yeah, just the two dudes.
Me too. I saw
out.
them and I was like, they're having a great time. They're just drunk, completely of different races and values, and they just love hanging out with each other. And I was like, in that way, that city that they were in was probably my favorite setting of the entire show, and probably the most unique plot point out of everything. And it was outside of every character, and it was more like, okay, wow, there's like a community where demons and humans live together and coexist and actually live wonderful lives. And then you have the other princess, Norn, of the Jarl Kingdom, who came in and was like, no, you humans are being held hostage and being brainwashed by these demons, and we're going to exterminate all of you. So it's just kind of this way, because Rob, I want to go back to something you said before about Kearu and like people able to be sympathetic towards him or empathetic towards his struggles and his problems. I think there is, to an extent, a way that you can feel empathetic towards him, because obviously, like the first part of the show, like the first episode, he's just getting ruined. Like Boy's just like absolutely getting destroyed. Like we go back to his memories later in the show, and he's just like, it's absolutely awful what they did to him, right? But on the other side of it, he's enacting these things and doing these revenge acts for things that technically did not happen.
Exactly.
In this world to him, but he's doing them against people who are evil in their own right, like the Blade or the Bullet or things like that, where they're like awful people that are getting their just due. But the thing is, I think I would be a lot more empathetic towards Kearu if he just didn't enjoy that revenge so much. And because every time he has and enacts revenge, he always just like leaves like with this shit-eating grin on him and just going like, and I'm like, he is the villain. He is absolutely the villain. Like, how could anybody say that this guy is the hero of the story or like the good guy in the story? And that's, I guess, the point of it is that there is no good guy.
If I interject, that's the point. There is no good guy. This is a heal program. This is a heal program. Everyone in the show is awful. Maybe with the exception of Setsuna and maybe Eve. Who. Like
the demon, like the future demon king or whatever. Yeah.
They went. That's the reason. The whole reason they went to Brianco was to encounter her, which they did.
Right. Which they did.
And of course, fucking Kearu tries to like bring Eve into the party. You know, the RPG party he's built, and she refuses to take part in any of the sexual stuff, and he's like, "Oh, you'll come around in time." And of course, they just keep showing us sex scenes between him, Setsuna, and Freya, and it's like, oh god, why do we need more of this?
It's just every episode it happens, and like it's either like everybody's coming, and then eventually like you just see Eve like masturbating somewhere, and she's like, I want to join, but that's immoral. It's just like that's just a weird segue that makes me kind of deem this show also a porn in addition to everything else, because to be honest,
this is almost a harem porn essentially.
It's a harem porn for sure. It's a harem porn, it's a revenge porn, but there are many spots that I went to the the hidive version I didn't really watch. I watched the uncensored version exclusively because I feel like, I don't know, anytime anything's blurred out in a show, I'm just like, I mean, like, I feel like I need the full experience. So I watched the uncensored version, and obviously it's a little more gruesome. It's a little more like sexual and explicit, everything's drawn out and everything's explicit. And, there was just a lot of scenes where it was just like him just boning. And I guess that's okay. But if I was like, into this as like it's a porn, I would be very excited about this. But into it as just a viewer, I was like, no. I don't know why I have to know about this all the time. Like, I get it, right? He has sex a lot, like whatever, man. But then you have those breakdowns where he enacts his own revenge on people. And his own revenge on people varies from person to person, and it kind of is a way of torture porn. It's kind of in the Saw realm of things, where sometimes he's even like, let's play a game, and I'm like, what is this, Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0, bro? Like, what are you doing? But these games are a lot more intense, right? I think
I brought the point up before. It's like he's like Season 0 Yu-Gi, or the original manga Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, let's play a game, and when honestly, I kind of cringed when I heard that. I'm like, no,
Yeesh.
don't taint something I love with your bullshit. And again, oh god, I'm taking notes as we're going because I'm getting so distracted only because
I know
my
we're like,
raging-
and I totally understand for anybody. We're like bouncing everywhere right now because I think this is less of like a methodical breakdown of Redo of Healer and more just like a
an emotional
regurgitation of
reaction.
all of our thoughts, a therapy session, if you will, after watching this, and just a regurgitation of what we experienced, I guess, and what our thoughts are.
Because the more I think about it on an intellectual level, the more offended I get, if that makes any sense. I'm just so appalled by this character. You know, yes, he was traumatized greatly, and yes, you know, bringing justice to bad people is something I will always support. But he kept going out of his way to brainwash or gaslight or just manipulate people who had nothing to do with the situation. Like, why did he have to coerce Setsuna to join his party? I know, I'm sure I'm appearing very sensitive to Setsuna here, but she's just like an encapsulation of everything wrong with the show to me. Or not wrong with the show, wrong with this character. Like, this is a very sick power fantasy.
Yes.
And the swordswoman girl, for example, she has no bearing on the story at all.
She doesn't do anything. I don't even know who she was before she came in. Maybe because the first 4 episodes, I just didn't really remember as much as I thought I would have. But I remember seeing her and being like, "Who? I don't remember."
Yeah, I watched
and
episodes.
She just came in.
I watched episodes 5 through 12 yesterday, and I can tell you, she does fucking nothing. She's just another mouth, and another vagina for Kaoru to have, and it's stable. It's gross, and yeah, the whole Eve thing again, like the shy one. You know, I can look over stock characters if you do something fun with them. What I have a much harder time working with is stock fetishes. You know what I mean? You know, the one with the big boobs, the average looking one, the one who looks like a child, the shy one. These are fetishes more so than characters. And, you know, unfortunately, we don't get too many character moments out of a lot of them because we have, for example, after only once or twice does anyone get any character development. I think maybe Flare is the only one where Kaoru goes, "Huh, you're much more like, you know, Flare, the actual princess that he brainwashed. It's like you're more like her than I thought you would be." And he's confused about that. So we see her getting a little more intense as her journey grows. And that's the only real shred of development we get in any of the casts that I can remember.
Yeah, I think the development is very much sidelined to her and I think Setsuna, but Setsuna's development stops very quickly. It's very early in the show, and she does get a little development, and they destroy, they kill the people that are trying to massacre her clan and stuff, and that's a whole thing. And I actually kind of, that part of the show, I was like, okay, yeah, I get it. And technically, Kaoru bought her, so she is his slave, and since he helped her destroy those people that were trying to massacre her clan, she is forever grateful to him, and will do anything he asks. Which I think after that point, she kind of just became a stock character. But before then, you really had kind of like an emotional pull from her in the show. But then after that, and then as he recruits these girls, as you mentioned,
I have to stop you. Only because...
Yes, I'm sorry.
It's appropriate right now. It's just a more twisted version of Latifah and Rio from Spirit Chronicles. The relationship between...
You're correct. Yes. Yes, you are correct. 100%. And there is, I think, as he goes with recruiting these women, they get less and less character time and less important in the story. And by the time he gets to the end, by the time he kills Blade very viciously, by the time he kills Hawkeye, again very viciously, by the time he finds Norn, who is the person that he was like, I may not be able to beat her, by the time he gets Norn, who is the sister of Flare, or Freya, he gets her and brainwashes her, right? And so now she's part of his crew to the point where, like, I'm like, And he's like, oh, you're my sister now, Ellen. I'm like, nobody else in this party is related to you by name. Why does she have to be your sister that's related to you in this party? And you still bone her. Yeah. It's very weird.
Fetish.
At the end of the show.
Checklist of a fetish, the younger sister
It is a
fetish.
Checklist. You're right. It is a checklist. And also, it's just, wow.
And now I'm thinking more about particularly the Blades finale.
Oh,
again, we needed more fetishes here because they basically have, they have not exactly cross dress or not exactly change sex or not change gender, but like basically they disguise KO as a woman because Blade has been essentially going around town binding, raping, and murdering women.
Honestly, just par for the course in the show.
Honestly, that should be something sick and horrifying in and of itself. Yeah. But by the time we got there in the story, it was like episode 10, and I was so numb. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
It's not a big deal.
She's just horny.
I was like, you mean like everybody else? You mean like everybody in the show?
Exactly. And it was funny. I sent you a picture. I was having a couple drinks while watching this last night just to get fucking through the thing, and just cool. And even now I have to tell this quick sidebar. Because I forgot, because I recently did some tremendous beer shopping, and there's
tremendous beer shopping.
Well, I told you there's a place. It's Total Wine and More. It's a giant beer and liquor store in Long Island, and so there's two halves, because in New York you can't buy beer, wine, and liquor in the same shop, so they have two different stores in one giant complex. So on the left hand side is all the beer stuff. And they sell individual bottles and cans, and they have like little cardboard 6-packs where you can just build your own 6-pack. So I built 2 of those. And so last night I was texting you like, hey, Colombian beer kind of sucks. And you're like, what are you doing? So I had to explain this to you. And I sent you a picture because I had this one beer called Regular Beer. And it's a white label, black, almost Times New Roman font. It's called Regular Beer. A beer that tastes like beer. Which is phenomenal marketing, first of all. But what I did intentionally to let you know what I was doing, I took a picture of it. I was holding it in front of my computer screen, and in the background was the end credits of Redo of Healer. And you told me like, yeah, that very much triggered me. I'm offended. I'm sorry, that was intentional. I thought it was funny. And you're like, I appreciate it, but please don't do that again. So what I did was I had a different beer. And I took, to get to the whole point of the story, of like whole yarn I'm spinning.
Right.
I took another picture of a beer. It was called Tiger. It was a beer from Singapore.
Yes, I know of it. I've had it before.
I never have it until that point. It was good. And
yeah, it's fine.
Exactly. I bought a lot of lagers and stuff. I only got 1 or 2 pale ales from that run. I'm keeping it simple, especially because I didn't want to be hungover today.
Keep it light,
I didn't want to be hungover. So that's the main thing. I didn't want another redo of Legends of the Galactic Hero where I throw up after we record.
Oh, God, yeah. Instead, you're getting a redo of Healer.
Yeah, so I want to throw up for very different reasons. So I took a picture of my drink, my Tiger beer in front of the screen as Blade is dropping the drugs into his into her cocktail when he's going to try to drug and assault Kaoru. And it almost worked. There was a fight.
Blade almost got him.
Yeah.
She ended up, taking him out in like an alleyway, and like after the drugs didn't work, she just knocked him out. Good old fashioned way.
Yeah.
And he wakes up chained on her bed, and she's about to like get busy with him, and then she goes to grab his apparent lady parts, and she grabs it, and she's like, "Oh, that's a dick," and she starts puking.
Freaks. Yeah, she starts violently throwing up.
Yeah, and he's like, "Yep, it's a dick. I'm a guy. My name's Kaoru. I'ma kill you," but very methodically. And he then just poisons her, knocks her out, and then he sets up this like revenge plot where he's like sitting and watching this stage where he's like eating a wine and dine dinner. He's just like eating some lamb chops and some wine.
I gotta give him credit. The food and wine looked really good.
It did look really nice. It looked really good. What a lovely meal. But while he's eating, she is just getting violently sexually assaulted by like 3 to 4 men that are like zombified with their aggravation and lust.
Oh, but he also did another sick thing. They were also starving.
Yeah.
So apparently they're like, yeah, if you stop boning them, they're gonna eat you. If you survive till morning, I'll let you free. I'm like, this is just sick sexual saw here.
Yep. And then, of course, what happens? She tries to do it, but she's not able to, and they end up eating her fully.
Well, apparently, I think she passed out in the middle and died, or like she died while trying to do it, and they just started eating her.
Something like that.
And he was like, "Oh, you made it pretty far," and walked away. I'm like, "This is just sick." I mean,
bro, yeah. Geez.
Here's the thing: maybe that scene would have been cool if Rio was like a forgivable. Sorry, not Rio. KRU. If KRU was a forgivable character, if Rio did that, here's the thing. Let's say if someone viciously murdered Latifah and Rio did that, I'd think, holy shit, he went off the deep end. But I wouldn't be as affected because I know Rio was a good guy, but who has anger issues. You know what I mean? I would have thought that was too far. But in this context, I just thought Kayara was such a disgusting individual. I can't even appreciate how I can't even maybe I think people would appreciate because of what Blade did to him. Maybe they could appreciate the revenge scene. I get that. I can understand that impulse, but KR is just not a redeemable character. He's not a good person. You know, if it was a morality play, if it was a good person doing an awful thing but for good reasons, you know what I mean? There's no dimension here.
Right.
It's just terrible people doing things to terrible people. So I'm just now I'm left just grossed out and numb instead of thinking like, wow, that was so intense and I think it was wrong, but was it justified? You know what I mean? I'm not having that kind of cool moral dilemma in my head. No. All I'm doing is thinking, ew.
Yeah, and you know,
I'm getting a little deep here for my review analysis of this show. I'm sorry if this is throwing people off.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
No, it's good to do that, I think, from time to time, and I think this calls for it
while I'm drinking a giant fat Asahi, just trying to
very fat.
Just trying to make this episode go down smoother.
That is a fat Asahi. And at the end of the show, I mean, we could even talk about the end and give some final thoughts because I feel like we have really, really harped on the negatives because there are just a lot of negatives as far as at least I'm concerned. The show really fails in a lot of ways to develop its characters past the point of they're a bad person or they're a person with a good heart that's doing bad things. I think by episode 6, it became very, very clear that there was going to be very small amounts of character development throughout the rest of the show.
Right.
It was just going to be about more violence, more sexual assaults, more things like that until the very end. And, if that's your cup of tea, that's your cup of tea. But I just think I wasn't getting what I needed out of this.
That's not my beer.
Nope, not my beer. I wasn't really getting that part out of it. I wasn't really getting a lot of enjoyment. The enjoyment that I got out of this show was very small, but it was enjoyment of genuine interactions between people. I think in that last city, that demon and human city, Kaoru started doing business with a merchant in that city, and they started to be friendly.
Carmen, I did take notes on Carmen. I did take notes on him.
I liked him a lot.
He was a good character, and unfortunately, I was thinking hey, wait a minute. Maybe he's not a total asshole. Are we going to get some actual genuine, maybe if he makes a friend, he can open up the introspection and go, oh my God, what have I done? I've completely lost control and I've done all these horrible things. Because that's what I was waiting for this entire time. I was waiting for Kaoru to wake up and go, oh my God, I'm a terrible person. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I am no better than the people who've done all these things to me. I'm hurting so many people. So that's kind of what I was waiting for. I still don't think the show would have redeemed itself, but I think it would have been at least a nice piece of emotional closure.
Sure, definitely. And I think
but instead
there was also a way. Yeah.
But instead what happens is fucking Kaoru just uses Carmen's death when, as you mentioned, Norn, when she gets to the city, she's like, oh, all you pure humans are brainwashed. We're going to kill all the demonic and demi-humans. But if you're brainwashed, we'll kill you, so we'll spare you. So they just start massacring the whole city. And Carmen is one of the people who gets killed. And unfortunately, Kaoru just uses that as another excuse for revenge. Where, he does some awful shit. Oh, what he did with Norn was disgusting.
Oh my God. When he made her own sister just have sex with her in front of him,
but also he did some like weird brain shit, or she was just acting out his fetish where she was behaving like a dog.
Yeah, that's right.
Norm was chained from the ceiling, and Flair was just licking her and groping her. And I think that the bet was like, if you don't come till morning, you'll be free. But if you do, I'm going to brainwash you. And it's like, oh.
And of course she did. So he brainwashed her.
Honestly, this is one of the points I'm glad I watched the censored version. And because I skimmed through, because like that scene lasted like a good 3 to 4 minutes. And I'm like, I'm not watching this.
It was a long time.
Because it was
just too much sometimes.
On the redo version, like the in between version, like it wasn't the censored version, but it wasn't the fully uncensored version. It was in the middle one. It still would cut to like walls for like 20 seconds because it was too intense for like the halfway censored version. I'm not gonna lie, I fast forward 3 minutes. I didn't miss anything.
Yeah, no, I get it. You didn't miss shit.
I just couldn't do it. I'm just like, this is, because then you get into the porn territory where it's like, this is now right. This is rape and revenge porn. This doesn't add to the story. It doesn't. Especially by that point.
It's all just relative, I feel like, to what this show is marketed as, right? If it's marketed as a porn, then I can fully understand people watching this, enjoying it and stuff like that. But if it's like marketed as just like a show, just like a regular show, then getting into it is difficult in that fashion, I feel like. And in any fashion for me personally. But I think at the end of the show, right, am I glad we gave it the last 7 episodes that we didn't watch? No, I am not glad that I watched this, but I am happy to say that now I have a full picture of what exactly this show was and how it had basically 0 redeeming qualities whatsoever throughout, and how it ended. And when it ended, I was like, thank God that's over.
It seems silly to ask, but like we usually try to wrap these episodes up cleanly with the question, is it bad? And I think you've already answered with your opinion.
It's bad. It's definitely bad. There is a community out there that has been hitting us up and that has been like commenting and stuff that really likes it, and it says it's like not even that bad compared to some other things. Some of those other things that have came up, I can actually read them out to you in a few, but like there are some other shows that have come up that I'm like, how much worse could it possibly get? And I kind of want to find out, to be honest.
Let's do it.
But whether we go down that rabbit hole is to be seen. But I think, if you have any suggestions for things that, are even just more horrible and just like even more deplorable than this, let us know, because we may check them out and see like how bad this goes, I guess, just as out of curiosity. But otherwise, no, this was bad. Didn't enjoy watching it. A few things I did enjoy about it were small, but like I think Setsuna's early character development I enjoyed. A few things throughout sprinkled in, like the humans and the demi-humans and the devils and the demons getting along in that one city was really cool. Yeah, I think Hawkeye was sick. He was a really cool like soldier / villain.
Right.
Enjoyed his presence until he got smashed and Kaoru stepped on his eyeball. Really enjoyed that.
Squished, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty gross, but he was really cool for the 3 episodes that he was around.
Here's the thing.
That was pretty much it. That was it for me. For me, it's for sure bad. But
for me, the show is totally bad, and the only things I liked about it weren't actually because I liked them. It's because they reminded me of stuff that I also enjoy. I at one point, I never went, oh, this thing is cool. I went, oh, this reminds me of that. That's kind of neat. You know what I mean? Those are very different things.
Right.
Yeah, the show never really went, maybe with the exception of that tiny bit of world building with Brianka. That was cool. The rest of it, no. The show didn't make me go, "Oh, that's cool." No, I was fucking like, if I'm now watching the show and happily reminiscing about Spirit Chronicles, this show kind of did a few things incorrectly. This was bad. one thing we didn't touch on a lot, we touched on a little bit in the first time we watched it, but I'll touch on it again real quick as we're winding down. The animation sucked. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
It really wasn't good. A lot of the fight scenes, they tried to be gory, but the blood looked so thin, and it didn't even look liquid. It looked like flat, and the color was weird. And, you know, we've watched a lot of violent stuff here. And maybe I'm just too used to 80s anime gore that was like really hyper detailed. So this was just like, it didn't do anything for me. It appalled or bored me. So I still stand by my ground. It's really, really fucking bad. But is it the worst thing I've seen? I have to ask myself that question again. Now,
is it the worst thing you've seen?
I have to ask myself that question again because, you know, the first couple episodes were really offensive, and I can't tell if it got less offensive or if I was just so numb I didn't care anymore. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I think that might be it.
That might be it for me. Again, like I had to apologize to Violence Jack when we watched this the first time.
Because, me too.
And I still stand by that. But you know, this was just bad. This was just bad, and I'm honestly, I'm glad it seems like we're done talking about it. I'm kind of glad we're done because I'd rather do anything else right now. But
until season 2.
Okay, also the show ended stupidly because they didn't even leave it off on a big villain.
It was such a dumb ending. Because they didn't even get to what you wanted. They didn't even get to like because he was gonna fuck up Bullet. That was the one that I was like, all right, Bullet is the one that, you know, you could do whatever shit to him because that was the worst thing that he could have, like, he was terrible. And this guy's like a child molester too. So I'm like, ruin his life. Like, I don't care about this guy.
It didn't really make sense from like a hierarchical standpoint because now it's like, actually, no, it kind of does. They kind of did the Bond thing here because I always go back to, I think it was Tomorrow Never Dies was the Bond film I'm thinking of. And if you're here hearing the plot synopsis and it's the wrong one, please comment below or hit us up on Instagram. Say, no, Rob, that was a different one. But I think it was Tomorrow Never Dies. It was the one about the corrupt, like, newspaper editor who was, like, you know, making these tragic events happen around the world so he could sell more papers and shit. He was controlling basically all of the world, and he was bending the world to his will through media. You know, he wanted to, like, basically build a world that he could talk about. Like, you know, sick shit like that. And he had a really cool henchman. So the entire movie, Bond and the henchmen are fighting. Bond tries to get to, like the main villain, and so Bond kills the main villain before the finale, but the finale is actually him and the henchman, where it's like and Bond's like, I already won, this is over, and the henchman's like, not between you and me. So I kind of get what they're doing there. They're kind of going through that dynamic where like the big boss isn't the final boss, it's the guy he has the much more personal hatred towards. And it's weird. I'm comparing Redo of Healer to a random Pierce Brosnan Bond film from the probably late 90s, which means we should probably stop talking about anything. I'm Rob. That was bad. Honestly, if you like Redo of the Healer, I get it. Be careful. I'm very serious because it means to me.
No, that's the hard part. Like for anybody that does actually enjoy this, I understand. I understand why you do enjoy this. I understand it. I'm not there, but I get it.
No, and I again, like I said before, I think if you like this show, you might be naturally an empathetic person. That's great, but be careful of assholes in the world. That's all I'm saying.
Be careful. Be careful of the assholes out there.
Yes. I'm gonna go pee. Bouncy, can you wrap this up?
Yeah, all right, I'll wrap it up. Guys, we're horrifically traumatized. That's it, everybody. I'll see you later.
It's bad.
Wow, oh my god, what a rousing podcast of anime conversation. Am I right, my compares? Am I right, my weebdom? Anywho, yeah, you can send us a message if you want. Did you like this podcast? Did you hate this podcast? Do you want to kill me? Do you want to drench me in Calaxosaur blood and watch me drink it? That's fine. Just send us an email at badanimepod@gmail.com or DM us on our Instagram at badanimepod, all one word. You can also find us on YouTube as Bad Anime, and you can leave a comment on whatever video you want to leave a comment on. We'll read them all anyways. We don't care. I love you. Kiss, kiss.
Simple Equations Podcast Network.